Raghavan, my fellow panelists, for this today's discussion on demonetization. Ladies and gentlemen, first let me thank CPPR and CEDL for inviting me for this interesting discussion on demonetization. And I also like to thank Lakshmi, Meena, I don't know where is she, yeah, Madhu and others for making my trip very comfortable. Deepthi already told everything what we are supposed to say. I don't know what else I have to cover. But I liked her first statement saying that we are not making any political statements. So I think I also joined her. I am not making any political statement. I am pure economist. So not even political economist. I am just an economist. So take my view as a pure economist view and nothing to do with my institute, which is comes under the Ministry of Finance. First thing about demonetization is that there was one graph was floating around. I don't know whether some of you have received in WhatsApp. Post November 8, one thing that happened is suddenly there is a huge increase in the number of economists in the country. Okay, and that is the huge significant change in my view happened immediately after November 8th. But let me add to that, not just economists, even astrologers also increased. Okay, and with that, statement, let me go through. I have how much time I have?
15 minutes.
Okay. So let me try to cover as much as possible in 20 minutes. Maybe I'll come back when there's a question and answer session. So demonetization, when this happened, I was one of the supporter of this, policy for a simple reason. If you look at the context that the policy has been undertaken, India is one of the fastest growing economy in the world with 7.6%, but only 3 to 4% people pay income tax in this country. So what it means is that rest 95-96% of people are poor, they cannot pay tax. That is the assumption that we have. And tax GDP ratio is just less than 8%. There is no country in the world which is growing at fast as on an average 6.5%, having a tax GDP ratio of less than 8%, and only 4% people pay income tax. A GDP, there was a apprehension that GDP, there was a lot of discussion about reviving the GDP. That means we are not growing as much as we are supposed to grow in terms of potential GDP. Inflation was coming down. I mean, we have seen inflation coming down from 6% to almost less than 5%. Current account deficit almost zero. I mean, as an economist, I don't say this is a great news, but I think it's been celebrated that current account deficit has been brought down to 0%. The investments were declining. I mean, if you look at first 2 quarters of GDP numbers, investments actually declined for the first 2 quarters. Employment, there is no information. And we all know that this government has come on the back of a huge campaign on anti-corruption, right? And this government has done so many things, and they are in the middle of their term. And one of the things that they have done was reintroducing that income declaration scheme. And fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, we had 65,000 crore declaration, but right now I am told that out of that 23,000 crores have been fake, and I'm sure Dr. Raghavan knows much more than this. So now what we have is, I mean, I don't see any newspaper writing about it. The net is almost just 50,000 crore declaration that happened compared to almost 37,000 crore in 1997. If you add your inflation or whatever it is, it's a meager amount that is being declared. There is also an international context. The international context is that we have a very bad export sector. Right now it's growing, I mean, it's growing at a negative rate for almost 1.5 years. And there was also apprehensions. I mean, the Trump is the biggest, you know that, right? The Trump itself is a big international factor for not just for India, for across the world. And exchange that international commodity prices were also building up. So given that kind of a situation, we also had some studies saying that, including, I don't know what my institute has given the number, but at least from the secondary sources, that in India we have a black money of 20% to 60%. That is, the range is from 20% to 60%. That is the range that we have. I really don't know how it is being estimated also. So given all these things, what the Prime Minister has done is that he has done whatever he has done. He has, all of us know what he has done on November 8th. But what is important for us is, what is this consequence? What is the consequences of the demonetization measure? Unfortunately, in India right now, the debate is mostly on the anecdotal evidences. I will tell you, even we don't have a GDP number, I mean, leave alone forecasting for next year. I am part of the national accounts which has been revised the GDP numbers. We only have 4 years information, that to 3 years full information, 4th year we only have a partial information GDP number. But we do see that a lot of people talking about impact of GDP is going to be 2%, 3%, and somebody said it's going to be recession. So I seriously doubt this kind of exercise. I've been working on this for 15 years. I know how difficult to predict GDP numbers, but we see in the newspaper every day, you see people floating GDP forecast. That's why I said a lot of astrologers around us. So is there a sequencing of this policy? I think that's very important for us to understand. There is a sequence. I mean, to be fair to this government, there is a sequence. We can blame that all these policies are old, but the way that has been implemented, I think there is a sequence in my view. If you look at the financial access, as Deepthi already pointed out, financial access is a major issue. And for the past 15 years, we have been talking about increasing financial access, financial inclusion, all those things. There is a sequence. If you look at this government, where the way Jan scheme has been implemented, the way the banking sector license have been given. Right now we have 3 types of banks. We have small finance banks, we have payment banks. Of course, some of them will not come up, but over a period of time, we do expect that all these things will come in. And GST has also been passed. We don't know in which form it is going to come, whether it's going to come in April 1st or September or October 1st, we really don't know. But we know that GST would reduce a lot of leakages in the, at least in the indirect taxes. Aadhaar was also implemented, direct benefit transfer have been expanded and all those things. The way we see that demonetization is from the revenue side, Aadhaar is supposed to be reducing or bringing down the leakages in the expenditure side, right? Public expenditure is another area where the black money used to be a very huge issue. I think Aadhaar-based DBT has already been, expanded in a big way. I guess it's going to be expanded much more, including salary structures. So given this kind of situation, what we have seen is that we have a situation where the expenditure, efficiency already been established. The infrastructure in terms of the financial access is also, to some extent, I completely agree with Deepthi that we still have a very long way to go. In fact, my own study says the financial access is only 48%. If you just leave alone, or not only the households, overall macroeconomy, if you look at, the financial resource gap is almost 52%. That means the 52% investments or savings are going from the informal source of financing, and that's a very huge number. But I think over a period of time, we should expect that to come down. But what happened since November 8th? As I said, I was for this kind of policies, but what happened in the past 30 days is something that is unprecedented, and in fact, I myself started questioning the way it's been implemented. What we have seen is that Prime Minister said 3 objectives, but now all the 3 are no more objective of this whole policy. Right now, what we are seeing is that less cash. Of course, we have been misunderstanding cashless and less cash. I think what we are trying to do is that less cash kind of system. And it's almost like shifting completely your objective from main objectives of November 8th to now coming to less cash kind of a system. Rules have been changed very regularly, unfortunately. I mean, there was some estimate that 182 rules have been changed since November 8th. They keep changing every day, or I don't know. I mean, in fact, I myself lost track of what's happening after some days. And banks also been given a lot of confusing signals. One day you say that all the deposits are going to be CRR. Now you say that it's going to be part of MSS. So in a sense, there is a completely confusing, chaotic kind of situation, particularly in the banking sector, which is supposed to be the biggest backbone of this whole policy shift. What are the costs? There were some people who said that government is going to earn 3 lakh crore because this is the money that is supposed to be extinguished. But now what we see is that out of 15 lakh crore which is being demonetized or become illegal, what we see yesterday, the RBI said that 12.44 lakh crore has come back, and we still have 20 days to go, and the money from Nepal and Bhutan yet to come. And in fact, there it's a legal tender. 500 rupees, 1000 rupees are legal tender there. So I'm told that a lot of unchartered flights have also gone to Nepal and Northeast. And the joke is that we might get more than 15 lakh crore to the deposit. So I think this is the way it is being. Now the revenue secretary says all the money would come back. So what happened to this counterfeit or fake currency or black money that we are talking about? So, and what is the cost? At what cost we have done this policy? I mean, I don't want to get into this productivity issue. In fact, I have taken a view that the whole demonetization is going to put a dent on the fiscal deficit. I mean, I have not seen this statement anybody say, but I thought I should say this today. The dent is going to be on the revenue side because the revenue is a function of GDP, right? The revenue buoyancy, if somebody understands, revenue elasticity, the revenues is a function of GDP numbers. Even if you say that RBI is right, saying that 7.6, it will come down to 7.1. So the revenue is going to take a hit compared to what it's been forecasted. Then there is a seigniorage cost of printing money, extinguishing, replacing. Anybody is from banking sector, they should be able to tell me what are the costs that they're facing right now. And then what we have done is that all these deposits have been shifted to market stabilization fund. Who is going to service the market stabilization fund? It comes from the government of India. So given all these things, and RBI governor very clearly said there is no profit, there is no loss, there is no transfer from RBI to finance ministry. So there is the things are very clear now, right? There is no money that is going to be adding to the kitty of central government. Rather, in my view, it will have a dent on the revenues part of it. And now everybody expected that if November 8th was not there, we would have seen interest rate also coming down. Now the RBI says in their policy, they say that they don't know what is happening. And this is so unfortunate situation. This is the one where we are looking for. The communication should be coming from the RBI. And the RBI says that they really don't know what is going to happen, and they are not endogenizing this impact of demonetization on the GDP estimation. The 7.1% that they said last week doesn't take the demonetization impact, while the rest of the astrologers kept on saying that it's going to be 3% decline, 4% decline, right? So the RBI doesn't want to take it. So, and then at the same time, they don't want to reduce the interest rate. That means RBI itself feels that we are in a completely confusing and chaotic state. I don't know what word Deepthi has used. We are in a confused state. And right now the RBI doesn't know what kind of policy is going to happen for the next one quarter. I think that is the crux of the whole problem. We can take care of us, right? But we know that there are some institutions like RBI will take care of us for a long term. Now the RBI says that we don't know what is happening, and that is creating a huge impact. Yes, there are benefits. There are benefits. I'm sure it will improve the transparency, bring down the transaction costs. This is exactly the most important part of the public policy. We have to bring down the transaction costs. We'll bring down the informal economy. In fact, we should expect my own estimation. I mean, I have just done in the first week after the November 8th. I said that if the money comes back to the banking system, and if it can improve the money multiplier, I mean, in the monetary economy, there's something called multiplier. If that improves, you would see a much better growth next year compared to the base case. That means in the next year, if I'm predicting 7% growth when there is no demonetization, in the post demonetization, if all the money comes back to the banking system, due to multiplier impact, we will see a much higher growth than 7%. I think, in my view, if we get all the 15 lakh crore to the banking system, I would expect next year a much better growth. So in that sense, I am very optimistic because there is no black money, right? So everything is coming back and everything is becoming white. I guess that itself is the biggest success of this policy. And there are other questions which Ditya already raised. Does it mean that demonetization is only one way of reducing the black money? No, I don't think even the Prime Minister is saying that. This is just, as I told you in the beginning, there is a sequence. So there are a lot of measures have been taken up. A GST itself is one of them, and Aadhaar itself another one. So if we can reduce the dependency on cash, Ditya also asked what creates black money. In my view, money creates black money. So there is no other, the currency creates, let me put it that way, the currency creates black money in my view. Because if you want to do transaction in black, you don't do transaction in checks, right? You do transaction in currency. So I think the currency is the biggest. There is a classic book by Kenneth Rogoff, which is The Curse of the Currency. Of course, he has written for developed countries and industrialized nations, but not definitely for India in his view actually. But in my view, if we can shift, the transactions towards digital, I'm sure if somebody is paying transactions in Paytm or card or something like that, I'm sure you see the ease in which you really, somebody utilizing Ola cab or Uber cab, I'm sure they should be able to tell us that all these systems are very useful for day-to-day transaction. Ola is definitely a great, I don't know about this place in Delhi, we don't even see what money we are paying. And I don't need to deal with anybody middleman, I just have to deal with my mobile phone. So Ola is a classic example where the digital payment system is going to create some kind of positive externalities. And if that happens, as I said, that if the next year the growth goes up much more than the base case scenario, I would expect that growth would really result in much better quality employment. And when I say quality employment, people will be shifted from informal system to formal system. Of course, there are other big demon waiting for us, robots, right? I'm sure you must have heard listening. In fact, yesterday Raghuram Rajan said robo will almost wipe out 100% of the people from the labor market. I think that he said it in IIM Ahmedabad, but there are a lot of discussion happening at the Western world how this robo economy, are particularly in China, and they have been shifting completely to robots now. I think that we are yet to really understand the impact of that. In the absence of that, I would expect that we would see much better quality employment in the next year. So when I looked at what is the best policy, public policy, I'll just take 2 minutes. Is that okay? So when we look at the best public policy, there are a couple of things that is coming in my mind. One is that transparency, timing, predictability, and credibility. I will not talk about all these things. I will only talk about credibility part of it. So now, whether this policy, how credible is this policy? I think that's more important for us. If you look at the banking statistics, just before this November 8th, from September 16th to October end, we have seen nearly 5.5 lakh crore deposited in the banking system. Just remember 5.5 lakh crore, but the trend increase in deposits is just 50,000 crore. I mean, month on month, if you see on average, you will see a 50,000 crore. Somebody said it is because of the 7th pay commission. Okay, let us take 40,000 crore extra. Okay, somebody said, income tax paid, maybe you take 50,000 crore extra. Even if you remove 2 lakh crore, 3.5 lakh crore addition to the deposits, okay, is a significant, very, very significant jump in the deposits. I think that raises the issue of credibility, but that's only half story. But if you look at October number, there is a sharp dip in the deposit by 2 lakh crore. I mean, these numbers are given by the RBI, right? They're all audited statements, and I'm sure we believe some numbers in this country at least, if not GDP numbers. So if you look at the monetary statistics, there is a sudden dip of 2 lakh crore in October month. Okay, so I mean, there is no explanation. He said that no, it can happen. That's what I was told. The finance minister said, no, it can happen because of various reasons. I don't know what are those reasons. So we don't have that. It never happened in the past 3-4 years where the deposits actually declining, because we all know money supply is a stock, right? The stock cannot decline. So here we see that there is a dip in deposits by 2 lakh crore. And what we have seen since 1 month, the 30 days, we are not able to get 2,000 rupees from ATMs. Now we see everywhere 1 crore, 3 crore, 7 crore, 10 crore, 96 crore, 97 crore new currencies. I think this is exactly the problem. That's where the common man or common people feel that this policy has not really been implemented in a proper manner. I don't blame the Prime Minister for this. I think somewhere down the line, the banking sector and the central bank seems to have let down the Prime Minister in implementation of this. One last point. Yeah, so the behavioral change. I mean, there is also a micro foundations in all these things. If I give one statistics which I missed in the beginning, we are the fastest growing economy in the world. Nearly 50% openly defecate in this country. That's much more shameless. There is nothing much more than to talk about this country. And for that, the Prime Minister, I mean, I'm sure Kerala is not an example at all. The Prime Minister has to come to Red Fort and say that, we have to follow, sanitation, good sanitation behavior. I think, so when we talk about this, there are a lot of great examples, but then this micro behavior, that means, you pay tax, or you don't get into corrupt practices. All those things are micro behavior. I guess in that sense, I always compare this black money with this 40% or 50% open defecated country in the world. If you go to, I keep going to United Nations, some of the things. The first question is that India is the 50% open defecation. I mean, there is no insult or shame to be an Indian to listen this word. I think this is exactly the situation even in the case of black money. So for this, the Prime Minister has to come and say that you should not get into. But of course, as I told you, the credibility part of it, somewhere it has been mismanaged. And I think at the end, I would like to say that demonetization, although it's a good measure, it is being implemented badly. And yes, it is not going to reduce the black money, it's only one of it, but shifting our behavior from currency to digital transfer will make not only us prosperous, but also the country as a whole. Thank you.